Hi, I'm Dr. Krista Dennis, producer of Creative Arts and the director for 2020 Tales. 2020 has been a year of crisis, upheaval, and uncertainty for everyone. One of the areas that's been hit particularly hard is the performing arts industry. Here at Siena, we weren't able to proceed with our performing arts and theater season as planned. We've had to do a bit of innovating. As for theater, we thought storytelling might be an interesting medium to use because it can be fully realized under pandemic conditions. Storytelling allows us to celebrate our common humanity, to connect with other people in a time when we're really just dying to make connections with others. You're going to see 12 stories from a group of wonderful, creative, thoughtful Siena students, and I hope you enjoy that. If you do and you'd like to make a donation to the Creative Arts Department, you can go to siena.edu/give/creativearts. Please enjoy the stories.
So this is the story of the simultaneously longest and shortest 24 hours of my life. That also sort of felt like a fever dream. If you've ever experienced one of those, it's not the most pleasant. But to paint the picture, it was March 13th. I was asleep in my bed in Rennes, France, studying abroad, and it was about 4 in the morning, and I got a phone call. And I'm somebody who always leaves their phone ringer on throughout the night because just in case of emergency and somebody needs to contact me, I always leave it on. My phone rang at 4 a.m. and I didn't pick it up, which definitely defeats the purpose of having my ringer on, but it was my mom, and I figured she made some sort of mistake, forgotten that it's the middle of the night for me, so I just ignored it. And then immediately after, she called me again, and I picked up, and that was when she let me know about Donald Trump's travel ban, and that I was going to have to come home. And I had seen this coming for a few weeks, and I had been telling my parents over and over again, I'm going to have to come home, let's prepare for the worst, and they thought I was just being pessimistic, but I knew that at some point it was going to happen. COVID was getting worse and worse and worse, and I just knew at some point it was all going to come crashing down and I was going to have to return home, but I didn't anticipate it being only 2 months into my study abroad experience. So at this point, again, it's 4 in the morning, I'm in my bed, so I try my best to fall back asleep, and obviously after hearing news like that, it's impossible to fall back asleep, but I tried my best, and then around 9 a.m. I got up and I did my regular duties. I made my bed, I brushed my teeth, and I went downstairs where the Wi-Fi was better because I was going to have to purchase a plane ticket. And a train ticket to the airport, and I figured it's 9 a.m. Usually my host family was gone by that time, and I'm sitting in the dining room crying, trying to find a plane ticket, and my host mother, sweetest woman in the world, she comes down the stairs, and she just looks at me, and she looks what I'm doing, and she just asks, "Comment ça va?" And I just start crying again, and she was like, oh my god. She had no idea what to do. And she immediately called into work and just told them she was going to be an hour late. And she sat with me and helped me sort out getting a train ticket, getting a plane ticket. And I couldn't get one for under $2,500. But, I had to do what I had to do. And so that was all settled. And she wished me well. She told me she wished she could stay the whole day home from work with me, but she had things to do, and then I had things to sort out of my own. So after she left, I began my day of lasts, which I knew would come at some point. I figured not until the end of May, but here I am, mid-March, doing everything for the last time. And let me tell you, I cried doing the most monotonous tasks. I cried making my breakfast and coffee for the last time. I cried unlocking and locking the door to our house because I had my very own key that I knew I was going to have to return. I went to the center of town to meet the other 12 people in my program who had also received the same exact news. There was one other girl from Siena, and we had received the news from Siena that we were going to have to come home. We really didn't have a choice. So we were sort of sympathizing with each other, and we went back to the school, Université GRINDR. It was a great school, and going there for the last time, riding the metro there for the last time, made me cry. It was just the nostalgia of it all. I went and we went to settle things up with the director of our program, who at that point our program hadn't been canceled. So we were all told then and there we were going to have to take a withdrawal for the semester, which was just added on to the stress of the moment, which the whole moment sucked anyway. So just made it so much worse. Eventually that got worked out along the future, but you know, just another thing to add on. And my friends and I, we all went to this gorgeous park that was by my house for the last time and ate together and cried and hugged. And then I went back to my house, and I went all the way up to the 3rd floor, which was where my room was, and I packed my suitcase, again, 3 months early, so it was way heavier than I anticipated it being because my parents were supposed to come visit the next month. And take home my heavy stuff in their suitcases. So yeah, my suitcase ended up being like 80 extra euro because it was so expensive. But packed my suitcase, cried doing that. And then when my host mom eventually came home at like 9 p.m., which was typical for when we would eat dinner in France, she called me down from my room and I did my duties for the last time. So it was always my job to set the dinner table. I love to cook, so sometimes I would help out with dinner, but it was always my job to set the dinner table. And every single member of the family had their own place setting with a napkin holder. And the entire 2 months I was there, I never got it right. I could never get my host dad and my host sisters right. They were both silver plated like cuffs. And it seems so silly and so small, but I never got it right, and it's something that, like, I'll remember. And I had this, my special napkin holder was red and green, and they allowed me to take it home. It's, like, one of the only physical things I have from France, and again, it seems so silly and little, but it's my placeholder, and it was my place at the table in France, and it's really special to me. And so we ate together one last time. My host mom prepared this delicious dinner we had before. She loved using her tagine, which isn't French, it's Moroccan, but she was a great cook. So we had fish, and I remember for dessert we had a Paris-Brest, which was like this delicious layered cake, and it was just so special. They toasted to me with champagne, and in that moment, I was just so lucky for the 2 months that I was able to experience in France. And I went upstairs for the last time, slept in my bed, and the next morning at 5 a.m., I lugged my, 80, 90, 100-pound suitcase down the 3 flights of stairs that I had lugged up 2 months prior. And my host mom, she drove me to the train station. She got on the train with me and gave me les bis, a kiss on each cheek, and she joked, I probably shouldn't be doing this because of COVID. And thinking back on it, yeah, definitely not, but in that moment I didn't care. And so that was the last time I saw my host mom, and it was a beautiful moment, and I left Rennes, but I know that it won't be the last time that I'll see France.
I come from a long line of mathematicians. My mother worked at IT. She's a project manager, so she works with numbers her whole life. My grandfather was a CFO at a company, so as you can imagine, that's all he did was math, working with numbers. And my father even was an AIS teacher at a local elementary school. He helped kids who struggled with math, and that's what he did, and that's what he loved. So, as you can imagine, my whole life I was told to be a math major, be science, be something in that field, and here I am, a theater kid. Now, I didn't start out as a theater kid. I was originally a mathematician. That's what I came into at Siena College. I was a math major. I would spend my whole time I was taking the classes, I was going to the colloquiums, I was sitting in the talks, meeting with professors. I was even going to the tea parties that they threw every once in a while. And I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna say I didn't, but I had a feeling something wasn't right. And then comes the end of freshman year, and my roommate from across the hall, he comes and asks me, hey, do you wanna help me with this show? Our stage manager dropped out last minute because of some complication, and we really need someone to help you pick it up. I know you've never done theater before, but we need someone, you can do the work. So I said yes, and I learned in about 2 weeks how to stage manage, and it was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Calling a show after absolutely no experience was an interesting thing to say the least, but I loved it, absolutely loved it. So I decided to pick up stage managing more. I went on to do it next year, the Pajama Game. It was a musical that they're throwing on. A lot larger scale. We had a 26-person cast. We had a full production team with Tony Award winners on there. So, as you can imagine, a completely different beast, but I still loved it. It was one of the most rewarding things I have ever done in my life, and nothing else compared. So, I decided, I love stage managing. What else in theater can I do? And so, I hear next semester we're doing R&J, and I decided to audition. And that is when I get the role of Benvolio. I absolutely loved it. It was a different experience than stage management, but still just as exhilarating and just as rewarding. I would spend hours talking characters, trying to figure out what it meant to be Benvolio, what it meant to act, something I'd never done before. And I was learning that I absolutely loved it. And then COVID hit, and all the theaters got shut down. Our show got canceled, we were all sent home, school wasn't really a thing anymore, and I was left at a halfway point. I was finally figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. And in the middle of that process, I got cut short. And theater was looking bleak. I mean, Proctor's had to cut 80% of its staff. Broadway was closed down. Even SPAC faced a $1.3 million loss that year. It was not a good time for theater, and I was also really wanting to try this thing. I couldn't explore it anymore. And mathematics wasn't any better. I couldn't still figure out if I liked doing that because schools were shut down. Academia just was a difficult thing to do, especially over Zoom, so I was stuck. And I was left with a lot of free time, so I picked up a job as a landscaper. It was socially distant, so I felt safe enough to do it, and I would spend 8 hours a day out there, just doing weeding, raking, whatever task they had to do for me, all by myself, and that gave me a lot of time to think. I had a lot to mull over, like, was it worth pursuing theater? Is there money in it? I mean, I've been told my whole life that there was no money in theater, you have to go math and sciences, and I kind of had a feeling that wasn't right, but I still wasn't really able to make that jump, and I knew I loved it more than I loved anything I've done before, but it was scary to just jump into it, especially looking at the world it was at that time. And so I never came to a decision. No matter the amount of hours I thought about it, I still couldn't figure it out. And then comes the beginning of my junior year. And my room and I are back on campus, and it's a different experience, but we want to keep up some normalcy, so we take on acting lessons with our producer. We decided to do a scene from this show called Red. It's by John Logan, and it's about a painter. And we love it. There was a story there that we felt needed to be told, and we wanted to tell it. So we start trying to figure out, how do we put on this show? How do we get this story out there to the world? We would spend hours. We were up till like 3 o'clock in the morning discussing how we were gonna do this, who we were gonna bring in, how are we gonna stay safe? How are we gonna make it an experience that people can enjoy? And it was in that moment that I realized what I wanted to do. Even in the best of times for mathematics, I did not work as hard as I did in the worst of times. The odds were set against us. There was a COVID, Broadway couldn't do shows, but here we are getting a show up and running and getting it out there. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I honestly wouldn't say if it wasn't for COVID, I would be saying that. If I wasn't forced to make that decision and really truly commit to something, I don't know if I would have chosen it. So for all the hardships it brought, I really do have to thank it, because in the end, it gave me a chance to figure out who I wanted to be.
Do you ever feel like you're running out of time to figure out who you are and what you're gonna do in life? I have. And I mean, I still do, actually. So, flashback to high school me. This short, awkward little black thing attending an all-girls charter school. Yeah, I know. I had the pleasure of spending 4 years surrounded by hormonal teenage girls. It was pretty much what you'd expect. Fights with a decent amount of hair pulling, cliques and friend groups as far as the eye could see. And I have to say, no one ever went without a tampon or pad. But I digress. So, I'd gotten really obsessed with Tumblr, that blog site in high school. It was a place where I could find the coolest blogs about stuff that I was really interested in, like movies, TV shows, and art. I had also found myself on blogs that were created by people in the LGBT+ community, and being exposed to that kind of dialogue, it made me reflect on myself. I wanted to figure out who I was because the tomboy female that everybody thought I was didn't exactly feel true. I didn't feel like a female. Sure, my name was Brittany. Sure, I had all the parts to match. Sure, I had grown up that way my whole life, but I didn't feel like myself in feminine clothing. I felt disconnected when people referred to me as she or her. Brittany sounded weird, and Britt felt like more than just a nickname. Me and gender dysphoria were like this. I had always felt rushed, or like if I didn't figure out who I was soon, it would be too late. Too late for what? I have no idea. But slowly I began to realize that, realistically, I had all the time in the world. So, flash forward to now. After countless hours on Google and many long talks with my therapist, I'm Britt, a transmasculine, non-binary college student whose pronouns are they, them, theirs. Now, for those of you who don't know what this means, to put it simply, I don't see myself as a man or a woman. I see myself as just a person, you know? What's in my pants doesn't define my gender. And the term transmasculine just refers to the fact that I identify more with a masculine gender identity rather than the feminine one I was assigned at birth. That being said, I don't usually come out and tell people my pronouns. It's like, if they ask, cool. If they don't, cool. You probably wouldn't know my pronouns unless you asked me, and I'm okay with that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just feel like it's a lot of pressure, you know? I'm a pretty reserved person, and I'm not quite at the point where I want to have an open dialogue about this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, I guess I am now. But you get what I mean. It's not the top conversation piece in the context of a hello, nice to meet you conversation. You know that saying, never judge a book by its cover? I feel that hardcore, because if you take the time to read a book, you could learn a lot. I feel like I'm the book, you know, if that makes sense. I'm telling you this story because I know what it's like to feel lost and uncertain. I want others to know that it's okay not to know everything right now, or even later. You have a lifetime to figure out who you are and what you want in life. I have to remind myself that I can't compare my timeline to anyone else's. No one else can live my life but me.
My whole life I've been taught never to be vulnerable, never to express my emotions, and most importantly, never to cry. Now, this was normal for me because my mother was a detective for NYPD and my father was a business owner in Queens, so obviously you have to have a very strong mindset for this. But the one person in my life who taught me that it's okay to cry, it's okay to express your emotions, was my grandmother. Now, my whole life I felt I kind of been living this lie, playing a character, and I feel that's why theater came so easy to me, because you have to play a character, obviously. But senior year came around, college applications, I was like, all right, time to reinvent myself in college. I want to feel emotion, I want to feel something. So the first thing I rushed into my freshman year of college was a relationship. Now, this relationship was very toxic, very traumatic. Even though it only lasted 2 months, it still had a big impact on me. I experienced sexual abuse, mental abuse. So no one should have to go through that, especially their freshman year of college. But I kind of realized I was settling for less, and I thought a man could determine my happiness, but that's not true at all. The only person who determines my happiness is myself. So I realized that, and I went back to kind of my grandma's motto and what she kind of does. And she'd always taught me to meditate and do yoga. And so I was like, all right, I don't really believe it, but I'll give it a shot. So obviously I left my boyfriend because I did not need that, and I started doing my meditations and yoga, and I ended up loving it. I do it almost every day, and it helps a lot. And my grandma was also a very spiritual person, so she taught me to kind of buy jewelry and stuff that'll just help your chakras and all your vibes. So this ring is a calming ring, and these bracelets, the green one represents strength, the purple one represents healing, and the blue one represents mental health. And I wear these like every day, I rarely take them off. So now at this point in my life, I'm kind of learning about self-love and self-respect and all that good stuff. But I still kind of feel lonely. I had all this love to give, but no one to give it to. So I decided to go to the pet store and buy a little betta fish of someone named Aquafina. I love him so much, my favorite thing in the whole world. And he kind of got me through quarantine and got me into just grow into a better person, which I love. So now on social media, I'm posting about self-love, body positivity, all that good stuff. I'm feeling great. I'm at like this high in my life. And the one person you think that will support you in all of this is your best friend, but that wasn't the case for me. She wasn't very supportive. In fact, she was jealous, I had come to learn. And it reminded me of the relationship with my boyfriend. I didn't need that in my life. So I decided to not be friends with her. I appreciated all the good moments we had and stuff, because you can't just overlook that. But I moved on, and even though I had this fallout with my best friend, I had developed such a great relationship with my roommate, the girl that I was roommates with from freshman year. I'm still roommates with her to this day. Talk to her about everything, like my actual best friend, love her so much. And again, I had this fallout, so when I'm feeling down and stressed, I do my self-reflection, my meditation, and my yoga. Go to the grotto just to get myself feeling up again, because even though we all go through losses and all of that, we still have to move on and just get back up. So now it's sophomore year, I'm giving a presentation for my public speaking class. And this is a big deal because I get really nervous for public speaking like most people, but I got through the speech and everything. And then at the minute I finished my speech, my father calls me. And at this point in the semester, I've been going home almost every weekend, and I've been like bringing the fish back and forth from home to college. I didn't think that was fair to the fish, so I decided to just leave him home, have my parents take care of him. So now I pick up the phone call, and I'm just figuring like my dad's gonna check in on me, ask me how my day was, all that good stuff. And then he tells me that Aquafina passed away, and my heart sunk to my stomach. I started, like tears just started rolling down my eyes. It was just, I was a mess. So I left my Zoom call, my roommate started hugging me. It was just a lot to experience, and immediately I got up, I got dressed, and I went to the grotto, started doing my self-reflection, just sitting with my thoughts, my meditation, and yoga, because I rely on these things just to get me better. So now we're just going on with our college lives. Everything seems to be pretty normal, pretty good. And then I get another phone call from my father. I'm like, all right, like, what's this gonna be about? Then he tells me that my grandmother passed away from stage 4 cancer. And again, my heart sunk to my stomach, but I kind of didn't believe this thing had happened. I was like, there's no way. It didn't hit me until I attended her funeral. And my life, my family, like, death was pretty normal to me. I attended a lot of funerals growing up. It just didn't faze me. But this was the one time at her funeral I kind of realized I lost someone that I loved. And this is the person who taught me that it's okay to express your emotions. It's okay to cry. And at her funeral, I let myself cry. And that only wasn't just good for me to let out my emotions, but I know she would have been proud of me in that moment for doing that. So now, a quote that I live by every day, and it's from the Bible, just is, let all you do be done in love. And I believe that whatever you put out into the universe is what you're going to get back. So if you put out love and positive energy, that's where you're going to get back at the end of the day. And I strive to be the light in people's lives like my grandmother was for me. Namaste.
My quarantine started out pretty much like everybody else's. My brother and I were doing online school. My mom is a special ed teacher, so she was teaching her kids online. And my dad was still going to work. So we have dinner together every night, and it's my favorite part of the day. Usually we talk about our days and what happened, any funny stories. But during quarantine, there just wasn't anything new to say. My mom, my brother, and I were together all day, and my dad would come home from work and nothing new really happened at his work. So I took it upon myself to jazz up dinners a little bit. I went on my computer, and you know how everybody looks forward to that week in high school, like Spirit Week, where you just dress up, you go to school, and everyone's in like red, white, and blue, or everyone's in your school colors. Well, I loved that. So I made a Google Docs Furlong Family Theme Week. Monday through Friday, I had a different theme for each day. I hung it up in our kitchen, and I was like, family, we're gonna do this. We're gonna add some spice to our dinners, add some spice to our quarantine. Like, if we're stuck in the house, we might as well make it fun. So Monday was tie-dye day. And I didn't know how my family was gonna take it. I didn't know if they were gonna go all out, but they really did. So we dug through our summer bins downstairs to try to find any type of tie-dye that we had. So this shirt I haven't worn in years. This is probably from like 7 years ago from a trip from the Bahamas. So it's obviously too small for me. So I ended up cutting it. I was just trying to make it fit. And it was just a fun thing to see my whole family all together in our matching tie-dye. And so then we took a timer cam picture of everyone together. And it started a tradition for the week. So Tuesday was Hawaiian Day, and my family was really starting to get into it. My dad has all these old Hawaiian shirts, so we were in his closet, digging in the back, trying to find which ones we liked the best. We had leis and bathing. My brother had on his bathing suit bottoms. My mom put on floaties. We had tubes. Like, it looked like we were going to the beach. And again, took our timer cam selfie. It was great. We sent it to our whole family, and everybody was loving it. Wednesday was formal night, my favorite night. We went all out for this one. We ordered the day before a big chicken parm dinner. We set up candles, we had wine, we had Italian music playing. It felt like we were at a fancy restaurant. My dad and my brother were in suits. My mom was in this fancy dress she hasn't worn in years. And I pulled out my ball dress from senior year of high school. It just looked like we were going to a gala. It was incredible. And again, the timer cam picture, and we actually dressed up my dog too. We put a little bow tie on him, and it was really cute. And then he started becoming part of our theme nights too. Thursday was a family favorite for sure. It was 80s day. And I've never seen my dad get so into dressing up before. He went downstairs and he dug up his old, like, rustic brown worn leather jacket, and he was wearing like a white collared shirt all popped up, and my brother's in his MTV shirt and like bandana, and my mom and I had these neon scrunchies. And I think the best part of this one was we found everything from our house. Even all the other days, like, we didn't have to leave to do this. We just found clothes and made it work for each of these days, which was incredible. And last but certainly not least was Friday, Siena merch day. My grandpa went to Siena, my grandpa and my dad go to all the Siena games, and obviously I go to Siena. So we all have the merch. We all have multiple sweatshirts, t-shirts. So it was a great way to end our week with something comfy, something we all had in common. At the end, I started posting some of the pictures that we had taken on Instagram, and they were just blowing up with great comments, and everyone was like, this is incredible. And so we decided to make a quarantine card of all the pictures that we took during the week. And it says, sending smiles your way. Hoping that all of our dear family and friends are staying well during this challenging time. We wanted to let you know that we were thinking of you, sending smiles and a little family spirit your way. Love the Furlongs. So I think it just shows that even during difficult times, you can spread joy. My mom got so many calls from all of her friends saying how this card just made their day. From people she hasn't heard from in like a while. It's just such a simple task that can really improve someone's day in such a dark time.
Congratulations. I just wasted your time. Just lived through a pandemic, I guess. The one thing I learned throughout this pandemic is time is very valuable, and that I know nothing. I don't know what's left from right or up from down. I don't know what's on my head. I think it's a hat. Everything's in shambles. I thought I knew a lot of things. I don't. I actually did learn one thing from this pandemic. So this thing is called a mop. These things right here are called tentacles, right? And this is the handle, and you're supposed to sweep it like this. I never knew. I mean, I've always seen people go like this, right? I've always seen that. It's ridiculous. Like, it's really like this. It was designed like this. It molds to your hands perfectly, right? And you just sweep away. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. I hate it when people, like, think they know more than me and then make me feel bad. But that's how you do it. I'm a mess. My brain's mush. I mean, I know I just said time's very valuable, but I don't even know like when yesterday was. I don't know when tomorrow is. I don't know. So, pretty messed up, I guess. I don't know. Before you go, I just need to get some of that. Yeah, there you go. All right. See you later.
So during quarantine, I got a job because I was sitting around at home doing nothing, basically, and it was so boring that I was like, I need a job, like I need to do something. And I got a job at a grocery store that was an hour from my house because I live in the middle of nowhere. I was working for the summer, especially during 4th of July. That was the busiest time, and it was like really hot too. And there's this one specific day that it was like getting near like over 100 degrees outside and like really nice and sunny, and it was like a day that I did not want to go to work, and I would have wanted to stay at home and swim, but nope, I had to work. And I had like a 6 to 8 hour shift. I can't really remember. And working at a grocery store during coronavirus was very, not stressful, but like high energy, I'd say. It was very high energy. But like, because there was people buying at least like $500, $600 worth of food in one day. And it was like exhausting, and I have bad knees, and I had a knee that was like, I had a torn ACL and I was gonna get surgery. So like my knees were shot every day at the end of work. This day specifically was very hot, and like so hot that when they took my temperature it was like 99, and they're like, it could just be because it's hot out, but like come back if you're feeling unwell. And I was like, okay. And I went to work, and it was, oh my god, it was so long. I think, yeah, I was right by the door too, because I tend to get the registers that are right by like the employee entrance, so when it opens it's like a gust of hot air. So so it was me in my like work uniform and like this giant ass knee brace, because I had to wear a knee brace so that I wouldn't damage my knee more. Basically not dressed how anyone wants to be dressed in 100-degree weather, with a face mask on because coronavirus. And it was, oh my god, it was so long. And like the whole day I'm just like thinking like, oh my gosh, I could go for some like one of those good like delicious beverages, like an iced tea would be really good, like a Snapple. Oh, I love Snapple. I had been like getting Snapple during breaks, so, and I was like, I want to get like one of those 12 packs of Snapple, and I'm gonna bring it home, and I'm gonna like savor it, and I'm gonna like sit by the pool and like just enjoy it, because this was like a week before my knee surgery, so I was gonna be out for a month doing nothing, and I'm like, I might as well spend that month doing nothing, sitting around the pool drinking Snapple, because why not? So that was on my mind the whole time, and I was like, what flavor should I get? Like, I'm like thinking, I'm like, oh, I don't know, and like I'm scanning like these, like everyone's thing, and this one person comes to my line and they got like this 12 pack of lemon Snapple, and I'm like, lemon Snapple, and I decided in that moment I was gonna buy myself a lemon Snapple, because in my mind I deserved it, because it was such a long day, and I was so tired, and I had worked 4 days in a row that week. But I was like, I'm gonna get that Snapple at the end of my shift. I'm going right to the Snapple aisle. I'm gonna grab myself with those 12 packs. I'm gonna drink all of them within a month. Which I did do, by the way. But so my shift ended, and I was like so happy, because I'm like, yes, I can finally go home. And outside it was starting to get a little like cloudy, and I was like, oh, looks like it might rain. But I walked over to this, like, the aisle where, like, the iced teas and, like, the Snapple are, and I was, like, looking, and I was like, let me see if I can find a half lemonade, half iced tea, lemon Snapple. And I'm, like, I, like, stood there, and I'm just, like, looking, and I'm, like, did my eyes go over, and I, like, look back, and then, like, I see like this half lemonade, half iced tea Snapple, and I'm like, hell yes! And I grab it, and it's like really heavy because it's a 12 pack, and I'm like small and tiny and fragile, so I'm like holding it and I'm just like walking down, and I go to self-checkout and I like buy it, and then I go walk out to my car, which is like the furthest possible spot from the employee entrance. So I carried all this giant thing of Snapple out to my car, and I put it in the back seat, and I look at it, and in big giant letters it says diet, and I'm like, oh fuck, I didn't want diet Snapple. Like, I was like, no, like basically it was like internal screaming, and I'm just like, why? And I was like, you know what, whatever, like, I'm sure it's still gonna taste good. I'm probably still gonna enjoy it, which I did still enjoy it. But so I got in the car, to my hour drive home with the Snapple in the back, and like it started to rain where my work was right as I was leaving, and I was just like, oh no, it's raining. Guess I can't like go sit outside at the pool today, but that was fine because I was getting home at like 5 anyway. And I got home, and it wasn't really raining yet, it was kind of drizzling, so I'm carrying the Snapple. I'm like trying to decide if I want to like go in through my garage into my house the way I usually do, or if I want to go and put it in the pool house, like to skip a step for like later. And I decided to do that, so I went to the pool house and I enjoyed my time, and it starts to rain even more. And as I was walking inside, I got not drenched, but like wet enough where it's like, it's not uncomfortable yet, but it's like getting there. So I was wet, I was damp when I got inside, and so I sat in the chair and I'm like, all right, what do I want to watch? And I'm like looking through the channels, like with my arm like this, and we had a real nice time, and we like watched TV, and it was great. And I had my Snapple, so I was happy.
So, GRINDR, the infamous gay hookup app. It never really was something that I personally like to use. But here we are, and we're in a pandemic, and I get sent home from college, and the classwork isn't that heavy, and then on top of that, I can't work yet because I still am in classes. So what else am I to do? I'm bored out of my mind, so why not talk to strange random men on the internet? So I started talking to these guys, and every single one is like, come over right now. And I think they're actively ignoring the fact that there is this pandemic going on, and people are getting sick, and people are dying. So I'm not just gonna go over to a stranger's house and hook up the possibility of catching it and spreading it to other people. But then I keep talking to these guys, and about 2 months later, one of my friends from high school starts messaging me. now this guy, we had this on again, off again relationship, and he basically was like, hey, why don't we hook up tonight? And I'm like, okay, like maybe I'll consider it. And then eventually I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do it. So I get all ready for this hookup, and then all of a sudden this news breaks that there's this giant lockdown because of the Black Lives Matter protest. So I have this two choices on my hands. I can either choose to obey the lockdown and the rules of the pandemic and stay home, or I can choose to go to my hookup. So of course, what am I gonna do but choose to go to the hookup? So I dress in all black head to toe, and I sneak out of the back of my house, and I'm sneaking through my backyard, and I eventually get through, and there I see his house. It's right there in the distance, and I go and I look down the street, and there's a cop car there. So what am I supposed to do now? I just kind of like jump and hide underneath a car. So I'm hiding underneath this car. There's a pandemic going on. The village is on lockdown, and I sneak back out of the car. I sneak over to his house, and it was okay. I mean, it was mediocre. It wasn't anything amazing or life-changing. If anything, it was kind of a waste of time for me. Like, way too much work, and I'm not gonna do it anymore. So I tell myself for about a month, and then another guy starts messaging me who's actually, like, really nice, and we really start talking, and he eventually invites me over as well. And I'm like, all right, I don't know. He lives a half an hour away, and that's like a huge commute for me. So I eventually decide to do it, and I research everything about this guy. I know his name, I know his friends, I can tell you his mother's maiden name, his social security number, whatever you want to know. And I send it all to my other friends, just to make sure the safety's there, and I go over to this guy's house, and we eventually start talking first, and then we watch a movie together, and it's this really nice, touching moment, and then we have a hookup, and I leave, and it's done. But then he keeps messaging me, which is like GRINDR 101. You do not message somebody after a hookup. And I'm like, you know what? He was a really nice guy. I'll give him a chance. And we just start talking and messaging back and forth. And he eventually asked me out on a date. And I'm like, okay, like I'll give it a try. And we go on a date, and then another date, and then another date, and then I'm the one asking him out. And now we're officially boyfriends. And I guess now we're looking forward to Christmas together.
I've been a dancer my whole life, since I was 2 to be exact. And not the type of dancer where it was just for fun, the type of dancer where it consumed my life. Okay, 4 nights a week, 4 hours a night. It was so much, but I'm not complaining. I really loved it. It was my whole life. And I've been competing since I was 9 years old, and I've always competed with the same studio. And every year we do 4 competitions, but we do the same one every year, and that one's called Dance Explosion. And our studio loved Dance Explosion. It was very repetitive, almost the exact same thing every year, but it was a blast. They would always play this song called Let's Get Loud. It was so upbeat. We had a blast. And they would always take these stuffed monkeys and throw them into the crowd of dancers. We all loved it. And every year, Dance Explosion had this tradition of bringing up all of the graduating seniors and bringing them to the front of the stage. And the owner of the competition would give this long lecture about how we need to continue our career and go into college because we are the future. It was so cheesy, but we looked forward to that because as this little girl sitting on the stage looking at these seniors who have been dancing their whole lives, they're your idols. And then next thing I know, I was that girl. Except I wasn't, because this funny little thing happened in March called the coronavirus, and it took everything from me. So when all of our competitions were canceled, or rescheduled, I should say, we had classes on Zoom instead of in person, which I'm sure you can imagine how fun that was. It was a mess. that's besides the point. So when our last rescheduled competition had been canceled, our last hope had been taken from us, my dance teachers gave the 4 seniors from our studio a call and said, that's it. You guys got to come to the studio and pick up your senior awards. So that was kind of heartbreaking. But we did it nonetheless. And so we came into our studio, and my teachers had unlocked the doors and then gone and sat in their car. So I drove up to my studio, and I walk in, and it just looks so sad. The lights are all off, and the cubbies are empty, and the yoga blocks are stacked just so nicely in the corner. And the only light on in the studio is from our trophy case. And now our studio is covered from floor to ceiling in ribbons, bows, plaques, trophies, awards, you name it, we have it. Not to brag, but that's just how it is. But the trophies that we were most proud of, that we worked the hardest for, we kept in this trophy case. And the light sparkling off of the Excalibur Award, which was one of the most awesome awards to get. And I was looking at it, and it just hit me, and it took me right back to the day we won it. And all of a sudden, next thing I know, I'm on the stage, and the lights are hot on me, and it's been about 13 hours of dancing nonstop, blood, sweat, tears, hairspray, gross makeup. Our hair is parted in the middle, slicked back, makeup the same, jackets on. We were very uniformed. You could tell who was with what studio. So it was the last awards on the last night of competition. And all of the studios came, and we were all sitting on the stage like we do. And they get to this award called the Excalibur Award, which is the highest scoring dance of the entire weekend. Now, mind you, the weekend is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, dancing from about 8 a.m. to any time between midnight and 2 a.m. A lot of dances, so getting the highest scoring dance of the weekend, that's a big deal. And like I said, we did this competition every year. And every year we lost to the same studio. We would get runner-up, and they would win the award, which kind of sucked. But this year we were like, oh, we have some really good dances. We're gonna go out there, and we're gonna kick butt, and we're gonna win this award. So they put it out there, it's like this tall, sitting at the front of the stage, and they're announcing who's gonna win it. So we're all holding each other's hands, we're sitting close, we're all excited, and they announce the second runner-up, and it's not us. Oh, and we get even more excited, we're holding on to each other, squeezing our hands so tightly, and he announces the runner-up of this award, and he says our modern name. We drop hands, and our shoulders slump, and we still clap, because we're good sports, but we were visibly disappointed. And we look over to the studio that we've lost to every year, and they're so excited. They're still holding hands because they know they won this award. So he announces the winner of the award. He goes, and the winner of the Excalibur is... And they play our production music. Our dance. We were so excited, we didn't know what hit us. We had just won the second highest scoring dance of the weekend and the highest scoring dance of the weekend. Oh, we were so excited, we all jumped up and we ran to the front of the stage and we're crying and we're hugging each other. And our teachers came on and we take a picture with the trophy and we're so excited. And then I'm back in the studio. There's no lights. There's no one hugging me. It's dark and I'm alone. But then, fast forward a couple months into summer. The virus has been around for 3-4 months, and we finally get permission to open the studio to have in-person classes, which was a big deal. We all had our taped boxes, and we were wearing masks. We were doing the most. And it came to the last day of summer classes, which meant it's the last day that the senior girls were dancing with our studio. it was a pretty emotional day. So we were warming up like we do, and we learned this lovely little John Legend combo. It was beautiful. And our teacher split us up into groups so we had room to dance, and all of the seniors went together. And after we finished dancing, we were doing our cool down stretches, and my teacher reached out to the seniors, and we grabbed hands, and we walked to the front of the stage, and we raised our arms, and we took our final bow, and we were crying so hard because it's such an emotional song, and we just got our final bow. And so we all hugged even though we weren't supposed to, and we're bawling our eyes out. And our teacher comes in from the other room, 2 of them, we have 2 teachers. And so she comes in with the little nuggets, all the little dancers, they're so cute. And she turns on the disco ball, and none of us knew what was going on. And she starts flashing the lights, and my teacher goes on, and she starts playing this music. And what's this? It's Let's Get Loud, the song from Dance Explosion. And we don't know what's happening, but we're vibing with it. We are all jumping up and down, having a blast to this song. And then my teacher goes over to this little box in the corner, and she goes up, and she takes these monkeys out of the box and starts throwing them at the seniors. And we're like, oh my God, it's just like Dance Explosion. But then she goes back over to the box, and she takes out these t-shirts, the t-shirts we were supposed to get, and she throws them at the seniors. And we put on our t-shirts, and we are having a ball. And she brings us all over to the side, and one by one calls our name, and we go to center stage, and we take our final bow by ourselves. And it was such a nice day. It was such a nice day because we got the final bow that we didn't get to have, because we missed out on all of our competitions, and we missed out on our recital, and it wasn't what we wanted, and it wasn't at all what we expected, but it was something. And the moral of the story is just to be grateful for what you have, because you never know when it's just gonna be ripped from your hands. So just be mindful of the things you have now and be thankful for them, because even if it's not what you wanted, it's something, and something is better than nothing.
Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Janani Jago Jago Ma, Jago Jago Ma, Jago Jago Ma Janani. He Durga Devi Rana Chandi Devi, He Shiva Ramana Jago Ma. He Durga Devi Rana Chandi Devi, He Shiva Ramana Jago Ma. Hey Shiva Ramana Jagoma, Hey Shiva Ramana Jagoma, Jaga Jaga Dondharini Ma, Jaga Jaga Dondharini Ma.
So a few years ago, I took a trip with my mother to Costa Rica, arranged by a not-for-profit organization named FIMRC. So FIMRC stands for Foundation for International Medical Relief of Children. So through this organization, I was able to work in a small clinic in Costa Rica and provide basic health services like shadowing the physician, running the pharmacy, running the front desk, and even checking vitals. So through this experience, I learned a lot about what it takes to run a small clinic in an impoverished area. Other than this whole experience, I really learned the importance of music and music therapy. So one day, a group of us volunteers were taken into a pretty big hall with Down syndrome patients. We all stood in a circle, held hands, and closed our eyes, and just listen to soothing Spanish music for around 30 to 45 minutes. After this music therapy session, I could really see the change in the Down syndrome patient's attitude, their behavior, their happiness, their stress levels. They just seemed so much more relaxed. And I learned so much from that experience and so much about the power of music and music therapy. It was so interesting to see how music therapy was a part of their daily treatment. It was a part of their daily medication. It was part of their lifestyle, and I really wanted to take that home with me. So coming back home to Wisconsin, I really wanted to implement what I learned in Costa Rica, in Wisconsin, and in my community. So I've been learning how to sing and dance for about 14 years now. So ever since I was like 4 years old, and I've been singing in classical music, and I have grown to love music. Music at this point is just part of my life. It's part of my lifestyle. I'm always listening. I'm always singing music. While in the shower, while driving, when I'm about to go to sleep, I'm always listening to music, and it's just part of who I am. During my sophomore year in high school, I started my own not-for-profit organization named Samarpan Healing with Music. Samarpan is a Sanskrit word meaning to surrender one's mind and soul to the power of music and music therapy. So through my organization, our purpose was to spread awareness of music and music therapy and bring awareness to Indian classical music. So through my organization, I taught a few students a few songs and a few bhajans, like the one I sang earlier, just very short and sweet pieces. And I would take these students with me to various assisted livings. At these assisted livings, we would perform for about an hour to an hour and a half, and we would sing, dance, play the violin, play the keyboard, and just do various interactive activities with the residents. Overall, I learned so much about the power of music and the power of music on the residents' mood, emotions, stress levels, behavior. We would come into the assisted living and not have many interested residents, and but as we were leaving, they would be so much more excited and more relaxed and more carefree and just happier in general. This whole experience taught me so much about the power of music therapy on our mind and on our soul. About a year ago, I conducted a dance and vocal confluence fundraiser event with my younger sister. I sang and my sister danced for about an hour and a half, and we raised about $6,000 to donate to the American Music Therapy Association. This was a really great experience for me because I really learned the power of spreading awareness of music therapy in our community. Just bringing up the idea of music and bringing up the idea of music therapy and the power of it is already a great step to further research, further development of music therapy in our society. In the future, my goal is to study music therapy, do more research, learn more about what specifically in our brain is triggered when we listen to a song. What causes that change in our mood? What causes that change in our happiness and our personality? Why are we attracted to some songs versus the other? Does playing the violin, playing the piano, playing the flute, what difference does it have on our mind and on our soul? And how can we study this? This is a huge part of what I am interested in and what I would want to learn and research in the future. And hopefully one day, as a practicing physician, I will be able to implement music therapy into my practice. Thank you so much.
So, in the past 2 years before 2020, I was a maintenance worker at a campground. That might be one of the best jobs I've ever had to this day. I was outside in nature. I was doing physical stuff. I definitely wouldn't be able to work behind a desk or a grill. So I'm very grateful for that job. And when the coronavirus pandemic hit, I was very concerned that this summer wouldn't be like the previous summers. But towards the end of June, we got the approval from Governor Cuomo that we could open our campgrounds. And the opening up process was going really well. We were ready to have campers come in. About a week before we were set to open, my boss and our, at the time, public safety ranger had a falling out, and our public safety ranger quit. So in a panic, he comes to me and he says, I desperately need someone to fill this position. You've worked here for 2 years, you know the place. If you take the job, I'll give you a raise. And immediately, as soon as he said raise, I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So I was pumped to be getting an extra $2 an hour. My first day on the job was 4th of July. So the time of the year where people are at their rowdiest in a year where they're not supposed to be rowdy. So I was a little nervous. But I got there and the night was going well. People were socially distancing and they were behaving for the most part. It wasn't until later in the night when I was helping out a camper with a different issue, and this woman and her 5-year-old son at her right hip start walking towards me. She had this very tense sort of energy around her, so in the back of my head I think maybe something's wrong, but I don't pay too much attention to that. I noticed that her 5-year-old son looks a lot like me when I was a kid. So immediately I had this like weird attachment to them. They get to me and the mother in a very timid voice asks, is the public safety officer around? And I had this weird moment of like, oh yeah, let me go get him. Shit, it's me. And as soon as I said that, she kind of choked up her little bit and her shoulders just dropped. So now I know something's wrong. She very quietly says, my husband is drunk and being verbally abusive. And just for a moment, I looked down, just like process what I've just heard, and I noticed that she has a bruise on her arm. So in that moment, I try just to shut my emotions off, and I'm focused on helping her and the kid out and making them feel safe. I let her know that I'm going to be there all night, and I am the resource to go through if for any reason she doesn't feel safe or comfortable, to find me and let me know, and I'll act on it right away. So I get her to calm down, and as I'm about to leave, she pushes her son towards me, leans down, and says, remember what this man looks like. If I tell you to go find him, go find him. And in that moment, my stomach just turned inside out. Coming from a community where I've witnessed what substance abuse can do to relationships and what it can do to a family, I don't wish it on anybody. And no child should ever have to go through that. They go back to their campsite, and I go to the nearest bathroom. I make sure no one's around, and I throw up, because that's the only thing I can do to get myself through that shock. She ended up taking an Uber home with her kid and left the husband there. I still think about her to this day. I was hoping that was just a really shitty bad day, or really shitty first day, but the instances just kept piling up after that. I've had to deal with many drunken fights. I've had customers spit in my face. I've dealt with drunk drivers. I've dealt with registered sex offenders who were too close to a playground. I was dealing with the worst of people. And it was taking its toll on me. Physically and mentally, I was in a very dark place. About a month into the job, I can't take it anymore. I go to my boss and I say, thank you for trusting me with this position. It means a lot to me, but it's affecting my mental health. I can't do it anymore. And in response to that, he says, we don't have anyone to fill your position right now. You have 1 more month. Just suck it up, be a man. And the concept of what a man is an entirely different debate on its own, so I won't go into that. But then on, I felt alone. Especially in this year where people are tense all the time with the coronavirus and the racial injustice and the 2020 election. I was starting to lose hope that we would find our way back to peace and civility. It was about 2-3 weeks before the end of my shift. I was talking to the lady at the booth, and this 4-year-old girl walks up to me with a little cardboard box. And she gets to me, I look in the box, and it's a baby bird, a tiny little sparrow. She looks up at me and goes, it fell out of a tree, is it gonna be okay? She had to she was so cute. I let her know that the bird's gonna be okay. I take the box from her, and she goes back to her campsite. And the next 2 hours after that of me just giving water to the bird, making stupid little bird noises to make it less stressed out, that was enough to make me forget about everything else that I went through this year. And I was able to just focus on this one thing, and just being able to see innocence in youth, even if it's just in an animal, made me very happy. I contact a local wildlife refuge to see what to do in that situation. They break everything down to me. And so I bring the bird back to where it fell out of the tree. I pulled the little girl and her mom aside and said, the baby bird's gonna be okay. The mama bird is gonna pick it up soon, and she's gonna learn how to fly. Thank you very much for bringing it to me. And she was so happy. And it warmed my heart to see just the innocence of children after previously I had seen it being destroyed. And that moment was enough to get me through the rest of the semester. And I realize now, after going through all that negativity and being able to find motivation through such a small moment like that, has made me much more aware of how I perceive things. I know now that even in the darkest of environments, as long as you have the light of love in your heart, you can see for miles.